short 6-game slate around Major League Baseball yesterday. 5 of those games coming during daytime hours, only 1 game in prime time, but still some exciting results to bring you here on this Friday morning. Huge series in the American League East, a 4-game set in Baltimore this week between the Orioles and the Yankees. Yes, you can still call it huge, even if it's the opening few days of May, because as Donnie points out, these wins matter just the same as those wins late into July and into September for divisional races in postseason positioning. And the Orioles take a huge series victory this week over the Yanks. Yesterday in the series finale, the O's win 7-2. Baltimore wins this series, taking 3 of 4 against the Pinstripes, making a statement in the division.
Yes, and certainly the statement was made yesterday for sure, and over the past couple games, that the Baltimore Orioles last year was not a fluke. We're a good baseball team and actually improved ourselves over the winter here. Now, granted, you can look on the mound yesterday and say what went wrong, and maybe Carlos Rodon can finally say, hey, man, didn't last week Major League Baseball tell us that these bunk jerseys are going to be gone? Because yesterday was over 80 degrees and looked like he was holding all the sweat in the ballpark in his jersey alone for how many fans were in the stands. And he got hammered. 4 innings pitched, 8 hits, 6 earned runs, along with 6 strikeouts yesterday. The clutchness at the plate for the Orioles wasn't really like, hey, let me step up in a big moment. It was the long ball. They hit 3 of them yesterday, and that's always going to power you. But as I take a look at the Yankees, there's no panic here. They'll get some of their frontline starting pitching back, right. And hopefully, though, the middle of that lineup, Aaron Judge, the former MVP, is currently hitting 197. Now, as anybody knows, watching Major League Baseball, as a player and also for your statistics, you need to get off to that hot start. Most players that have a good season get off to that, hey, I'm hitting 350 by the end of the first month. We know that's going to last, and even if you don't hit that well throughout the rest of the summer, you wind up around 280, which is still a decent batting average. It's very rare for guys to get off to a 197 start, Ben, and end up at 280 at the end of the season. So are we looking at a season for Judge around 235, 240, maybe limited power options? That's just a tough scene. And yes, they're still way above 500 here, in contention.
Yep.
But that's the guy that you wanted to get off to a hot start at this point. And if he's not playing well, what do you hold it to? And when does he bounce back here? Just a bad start for him at the plate, but also 2011 Baltimore Orioles. We sort of expected this, Ben, didn't we?
Yeah, Baltimore last year, more than 100 wins, best record in the American League, the number 1 seed in the AL playoffs. Of course, it was a young core that was bounced by the Texas Rangers. The Rangers went on to win a World Series, but can they take that playoff experience from a year ago, and if they get back to that stage, as we all expect, move even further along? Now, to Donnie's point, there is no panic, though, because it is just the first few days of May for the Yankees losing a 4-game set on the road in Baltimore. 3 teams in the American League have 20 wins. The O's, the Guardians, and still the Yankees. Baltimore just has 2 less losses as they played 2 fewer games than that of the Yanks. 20-11 for Baltimore, 20-13 for New York. The Pinstripes still remain the favorites in minus money to win the American League East at minus 125. And the Yanks still remain the favorites to win the AL pennant at plus 320. Baltimore has that second best number. It was 5-1 earlier this week, now plus 550, not because of anything, of course, that happened in this series, but because the Astros are playing a little bit better baseball. They've won 3 of their last 4 games, or 4 of their last 5 as well. So both teams, Donnie, Baltimore and New York, we expect to be there at the very end, not only in contention for this divisional title, but of course in the race for the pennant as we get closer to October.
Yeah, and let's see also what happens at the deadline. And I know it's a little bit early to talk about that, but that's when teams ramp up and say, okay, now we're putting this in for that final month stretch here in August and through September in the playoffs. But also keep in mind, the Yankees just might have the best pitcher in Major League Baseball, but he's not even pitching yet. Here's the issue. Garrett Cole, as we saw before the season started, spring training, never a good sign. Let's see what we get. Hopefully it's not going to be a Tommy John surgery. Here's the problem. Yes, it's not a Tommy John surgery, which is good news here, but the Yankees are telling us, Ben, we don't even have a timeline yet on Garrett Cole. What you wanted to hope for, okay, let's sit him down for a month and a half, let's start throwing again. Garrett Cole isn't even throwing again. So if you can tell me by, let's just say, it's May right now, July 1st, we're getting Cy Young Cole back in our lineup, or Caliber Cole, I should say, back in our lineup, that's going to be a massive boost here to the Yankees. But if we get some of that news where things aren't working out well, shut him down, and maybe he doesn't pitch again this season, you better look at that plus 175, plus 170 or less price here on the Baltimore Orioles moving through. Because, yes, the Yankees are going to make a move, but you're not going to make a move and get a guy like Garrett Cole into your lineup. That guy seems like if he can come back by July, or let's just say both of these teams are within 3 games either of each other, that could be the difference in his 10 to 15 starts down the stretch to win that division here. If Garrett Cole isn't 100% healthy here, I don't know if you can take the Yankees at this point, to be honest.
And you saw the Yankees price even move back by $1 in the World Series odds. Why? Because the Houston Astros are playing better baseball. And when you're a favorite before the year gets started and you're starting to look a little bit better as May approaches, it's going to move the market ever so slightly. We're talking a couple of cents and $1 here. And the Astros did win a series against the Guardians this week. They swept the Rockies in Mexico City over the weekend. Make that 4 of 5 for Houston. Yesterday, 8-2, the Astros win the series finale over Cleveland as a slight home favorite, minus 136 on that money line. The Astros were actually down entering the 6th inning. They score 7 runs, 2 in the 6th, 5 in the 7th to pull away for the 8-2 win.
Yeah, good job by them on their bullpen to hold it down after the 3rd inning. As you said, down 2 runs here. They get one back in the bottom of the 3rd inning, but they use that big surge late in the game in the 7th inning to pop through. And they got a couple young players in there, like Diaz in that lineup. Has 2 RBIs last night, had that clutch, bases-loaded single to left field that really blew that game open. And Jose Altuve, 3 more hits from yesterday, 352 on the season. The Astros ain't done yet here for 2024.
Not exactly a youngin', John Singleton, who is 32 years old, but 3 ribbies yesterday to really lead that offense for Houston, including the go-ahead 2-run shot in the bottom of the 6th. We'll show you more around Major League Baseball in the short slate that was yesterday. The Marlins stacking up multiple wins in a row, and a good 4-game set up in Queens between the Mets and the Cubbies comes to a close. All of that and more on the other side of the break as we go around MLB here on the Early Line. Sound the alarm. Boom, boom, boom. New programming alert here on SportsGrid that starts this weekend, including this Friday, today, noon Eastern time. Relive the excitement in Singapore. Tune in to the Live post-round show for highlights and insights today at noon Eastern and this weekend, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern here on SportsGrid. Live, love, laugh. It's golf season, baby, here on SportsGrid. Now, to Major League Baseball we go. A battle of the bottom this week in South Florida between the Rockies and the Marlins, the 2 worst records in the National League. But you know how bad Colorado is? That Miami just pulled off the sweep yesterday in extras, winning the this series finale 5-4 in 10 innings. Not only just pulling off the sweep, but the Fish were booked as a minus 166 money line favorite pregame. Total goes over 7.5. Jesus Sanchez hits the game-winning RBI single. Luis Arias scores in the bottom of the 10th. The first time this year, DRS, of course, the Marlins have pulled off a sweep. The first time this year, Miami has won multiple games in a row. They win 3 straight over Colorado.
I got to tell you, like the Miami Marlins, we've always expected just to be a bad baseball organization in a town that doesn't really care about them because they don't win nor they try to win at that point. If you remember when they were building their new stadium, I love their old ownership group, which loading up on some talent. They were sold out the first couple games. Everything was great. And then he realized he pulled the wool over everybody's eyes and sold by like the deadline and got rid of everybody. And Miami's not going to come back for that because they know better than to come back to the ballpark. But what's the question for the Colorado Rockies here? They have a great ballpark in a good atmosphere. They get a lot of fans in their building. And you can say to yourself, okay, they probably have a lot of superstars. If you look at that 1 through 9 lineup, which again would include their starting pitcher yesterday, you barely even heard any of these names ever on your radar even one time here. So when you look at them, look, I know Luis Arias and De La Cruz and Jazz Chisholm and Bell from his Pittsburgh days, but you look at that lineup for the Colorado Rockies, and outside of like I know JK because he used to be a Philadelphia Philly bench warmer here, that whole lineup stinks out loud, and it shouldn't be the case. Like they're 7-24. My goodness here. How did this happen in Colorado? Forget about Miami. How did this happen in Colorado where they don't have one recognizable player, and the one that they does have is injured in Bellinger, and he basically said, yeah, I signed because there's a lot of money, and like day number one, I was hoping to get out of here. It's crazy.
You mean Chris Bryant, right? In Colorado, not Cody Bellinger?
Oh, yes, correct.
Yeah,
yes.
But when you look at these two, I mean, but Donnie's right. It's kind of an afterthought with the Colorado Rockies at this moment. Miami is now 9-24. The Rocks are 7-24. They have lost 5 straight games. When we're looking at who is going to be the worst team in Major League Baseball this season, at least neither of these two have the shortest number to have the worst regular season record. That's still the Chicago White Sox, who are 6-24. But those 3 teams, DRS, the White Sox, the Rockies, and the Marlins, the 3 teams around MLB that have failed to reach at least double-digit wins so far this season.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere soon here. And also, if you do take a moment to take a look at the Colorado Rockies here, by the way, this has always been an issue. And we're going way back. Like when the Mets had Mike Hampton as a pitcher, right? He goes over to Colorado for the most money he can get. But then again, he gets shelled and his career ends up. Like, honestly, if you are a top flight pitcher, why would you ever go there? Because you want to make a lot of money. I get it. But it's all about pride. When you hang up your cleats at the end of your career and you say, well, I had a 5 ERA, but I pitched in Colorado and I was pretty good. That doesn't hold up here. It's an interesting thing to have because if you're a hitter, you also can put up big numbers. But what does everybody say at the end of your career? Now, you probably stunk unless you played in Colorado at this point. And it's right here because your numbers are inflated at home and bad on the road. And everybody thinks you're just not that great of a player because you play in Colorado. It's a double-edged sword. It hasn't worked out for them, and I don't know how it gets any better, to be honest.
The Oakland Athletics listed on that graphic, but Oakland is far from one of the worst teams in MLB this year. Just 2 games below 500, 15-17. The A's have the second longest active win streak around the bigs, 4 straight winners for the A's. The New York Mets split a 4-game set against Chicago up in Queens this week as the Mets walk it off yesterday in the bottom of the 11th, 7-6. Francisco Lindor, a 2-run RBI double off in that 11th inning for the walk-off. Our technical director, Matt Malalam, was there to take in the excitement, Donnie.
Yeah, and by the way, good win for them because also that's one of those against a good team in the Cubs that you were down 4 runs by the time you started your rally. You got to start somewhere for the Mets. 16-50 now, above 500. Let's see where they go.